Okay, let's get into this. You know that feeling, especially that week right after the clocks change? You're doing everything normally, same routine, same coffee, maybe even the same amount of sleep, but you just feel off, like your body's rhythm is half a step behind the day. Well, we dug into the sources and that feeling. It's totally normal. It's got nothing to do with your age or how motivated you are. It's your internal timing system, your circadian rhythm, scrambling to catch up with a rule change someone else made.
Exactly. And that little mismatch, that's really the heart of our deep dive today. We've looked at a whole range of material neurobiology, heart health studies, even old railroad timetables and government acts. Our goal here is to unpack what that 1 hour shift actually does to your body, biologically speaking. We'll explore why things like your balance might feel off, how it connects to your heart, and then trace the pretty surprising history of how time zones and daylight saving time even became a thing.
Right, because it all comes down to this fundamental point. Your body clock, the real master regulator, it follows the sun. It doesn't care about the numbers on your phone. It's all about light.
It really is. And what's, I think, truly fascinating is just how much this rhythm controls. We tend to think, oh, circadian rhythm, that's sleep, but it's so much more. Think of it as this conductor deep in your brain, leading this huge, complex orchestra across your entire body. It times your sleep and wake cycles, sure, but also when hormones like cortisol and melatonin get released, your blood pressure ups and downs, how efficiently you digest food, even things like your coordination and, well, emotional stability.
Wow, okay. So it's basically running the whole show, down to the smallest detail. So when we force this change overnight, the world outside our schedules, our alarms, they move instantly. But the research says our bodies take, 2 to 5 days to really adjust. Why so long for just 1 hour? Is our biology just inefficient?
Not at all, actually. That slow adjustment, that's the body being smart. It's showing its stability. Your body craves precision. It's built to maintain balance, homeostasis. Imagine if your blood pressure timing or your digestive enzyme release suddenly jumped forward by a full hour. That could be really jarring, potentially harmful. So instead, it adjusts gradually, maybe, 10, 15 minutes a day, slowly closing that gap. It's prioritizing keeping all its internal systems synchronized with each other while they collectively catch up to the outside world.
Ah, okay. That makes the hormone side of things feel much more deliberate then. Like when we spring forward in March, we lose an hour. Suddenly, evening light lasts longer, but the mornings are darker when we wake up. So our internal clock is still trying to release melatonin later, release cortisol later, which explains why those first few mornings feel so heavy, right?
Precisely. Your brain is getting the signal to wake up, but it's getting less light, and the cortisol surge that helps you feel alert is delayed. You're essentially fighting your own internal programming.
Which is set by light.
Which is set by light. And conversely, when we fall back in autumn, that sleep drive, the melatonin rise, tends to hit earlier in the evening than the clock says it should. So you might feel ready for bed earlier, maybe a bit restless later, until your body syncs up with the new later bedtime.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to something I found really surprising in the sources. The connection between this timing shift and, physical balance. People don't just say they're tired. They often mention feeling clumsy, less coordinated. Why would that first step out of bed feel shaky?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Balance isn't just one thing. It's this incredibly precise coordination, like a split-second timing act, between four different systems. You've got your vision telling you where you are. You've got the vestibular system in your inner ear, sensing motion and gravity. Then there's proprioception, your nervous system's sense of where your limbs are in space. And finally, the timed activation of your postural muscles to keep you upright. All four need to fire in perfect sequence. So when the master clock, the circadian rhythm, shifts, even slightly, the timing between those four systems can get temporarily disrupted. The signals might be just milliseconds off while the brain recalibrates.
So it's not that any part is broken, it's that the conductor, the circadian clock, is running slightly late. But the demand like standing up quickly is happening now. That little lag causes the stumble.
Exactly. That momentary confusion can subtly change your gait, your reaction speed. It's a temporary recalibration.
Which is why that simple advice we found makes so much sense. Pause before you move quickly.
Yes. Give those systems just a beat to get organized. Think, sit, then stand, then walk.
Yeah.
That deliberate pause lets things sync back up.
And this whole idea of precise timing becomes even more critical when we look at the heart. We see these reports, small but consistent increases in heart-related issues right after the springtime change. It sounds scary, but you emphasized it's not because the heart is suddenly weaker.
No, it's not about inherent weakness. It's again about timing. Your cardiovascular system runs on a very predictable circadian schedule. Your blood pressure has a daily rhythm. Even the elasticity of your blood vessels changes throughout the day, all timed by that internal clock. When your alarm forces you awake an hour earlier than your body expects, the cues for regulating blood pressure, for instance, can get thrown off. Your body might start ramping up cardiovascular activity at a point in its cycle when it's normally lower, or vice versa. It's a subtle stress from misalignment.
So it highlights why easing into the morning, especially during that adjustment week, is actually biologically supportive.
Very much so. A gentle start matters.
Okay, that covers the personal biological impact. But if our bodies struggle with just 1 hour, it makes you wonder about the chaos before we even had standard time. Let's zoom out now and connect this internal struggle to the larger historical one.
All right, this is where it gets really interesting historically. You have to go back to the late 1800s. Before then, basically every town, every city, ran on its own local solar time. Noon was simple. It was when the sun was highest in the sky wherever you were.
Which must have worked fine when travel was slow, communities were local.
Exactly. But then came the railroads. Suddenly you have relatively fast travel connecting cities. And if each city is using its own sun time, you could have clocks differing by, 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes just between neighboring towns.
Imagine trying to run a train schedule like that.
It was a nightmare. Worse than a nightmare, it was dangerous. Conductors, telegraph operators, they were constantly doing time conversions. Mistakes led to misconnections, huge delays, and, critically, head-on train collisions. It was a massive safety problem.
So the railroads had to fix it.
They did. And here's the kicker. The government didn't step in first. It was the railroad companies themselves. On November 18th, 1883, a day, literally called Railroad Time Day, railroads across the U.S. and Canada voluntarily adopted 4 standard time zones. It was driven entirely by the need for safety and efficiency. They imposed the structure, and people, businesses, and eventually the government just kind of fell in line.
Wow, so standard time zones weren't a government idea initially. They were an industry solution to a safety crisis.
Pretty much. And that coordinated system, that agreement on time, that's what even made seasonal clock changes possible later on. You couldn't have DST without standard zones first.
And DST itself, that came later with WWI.
Yes, the Standard Time Act of 1918 made the time zones official federal law, and it introduced daylight saving time. The reason? To save fuel. Specifically coal and gas.
How did changing the clock save fuel?
By shifting activities into daylight hours. If people are up and about when it's light out, they use less artificial lighting in the evenings, which in 1918 meant burning less coal for electricity and gas for lamps. That saved fuel could then be used for the war effort.
Makes sense. And then it happened again in WWII.
It did. During World War II, the U.S. implemented year-round DST, calling it wartime. Same strategic goal. Conserve energy resources for military use.
But after the wars, things got messy again.
Oh, incredibly messy. Between 1945 and 1966, there was no federal mandate. Some states kept DST, some didn't. Some counties within states did their own thing. Some changed clocks on different dates. They called it the patchwork confusion. Imagine driving a short distance, say from Ohio into Indiana back then. You might cross time zones or DST boundaries multiple times in an hour.
What a headache for anyone trying to schedule anything travel, business calls.
Exactly. It was totally chaotic. You could board a bus, and the schedule posted at the station might be meaningless 50 miles down the road.
So that chaos finally forced Congress to act.
It did. That led directly to the Uniform Time Act of 1966. This law standardized the start and end dates for DST across the country. Crucially, it allowed states to opt out of DST entirely, sticking with standard time year-round, but it didn't allow them to choose permanent DST. Yes. And that restriction is still the core of the debate today.
Right. Which brings us neatly to the current policy battle. It really seems to pit biology against the economy, doesn't it? On one side, you have sleep science, neurology, basically arguing for permanent standard time. Why is ST seen as the healthier option?
It boils down to light exposure, specifically morning light. Standard time aligns our daily schedules more closely with the sun's natural cycle. Getting bright light, especially morning light, hitting your eyes is the most powerful signal to your brain to shut down melatonin production, ramp up cortisol, and promote alertness. It anchors your circadian rhythm naturally.
Okay, so ST maximizes that crucial morning light signal. But under permanent daylight saving time, particularly for people living in the northern parts of the country or on the western edges of time zones, they'd be waking up and commuting in the dark for a big chunk of the year. What are the documented downsides of that long term?
Well, waking up in darkness means that melatonin shutdown is slower, weaker, you feel groggier for longer. Over time, this pushes your whole circadian rhythm later, making it harder to fall asleep at a reasonable hour and harder to wake up. Researchers call this social jet lag, a chronic mismatch between your body clock and your social work clock.
And that chronic mismatch, that constant subtle jet lag, it adds up.
It does. Studies link this chronic misalignment to accumulating sleep debt, which impacts mood, focus, and cognitive function. And physiologically, there's growing evidence linking it to problems with metabolic health, how your body manages blood sugar, and potentially higher long-term risks for things like heart disease, stroke, and even depression and anxiety.
So the health argument for permanent standard time is pretty clear. Align with the sun, prioritize morning light. But then there's the push for permanent DST, driven largely by economics and lifestyle preferences.
Absolutely. The argument there is straightforward. More daylight in the evening means people are more likely to go out after work or school. They might go shopping, eat out, play sports, go for walks. This boosts retail sales, supports restaurants and bars, encourages recreation. There's also a perception, sometimes backed by data, that more evening daylight improves public safety.
It really is a direct conflict. Biology preferring morning light, while leisure and commerce prefer evening light.
It is, and you see this reflected in the states that have opted out of the current system. Hawaii doesn't observe DST, mainly because, being near the equator, their daylight hours don't change much seasonally anyway. And Arizona, most of it, except the Navajo Nation, which does observe DST, opts out because, well, adding an extra hour of intense sunlight and heat in the evening during their very hot summers just isn't practical or desirable.
Right, and then you have states like Florida stuck in the middle.
Sort of. Florida and several other states have actually passed laws saying they want permanent DST. They prefer the economic and lifestyle benefits. But they can't actually implement it because the Federal Uniform Time Act currently forbids it. Congress would have to change the law. They could choose permanent standard time right now, like Arizona, but that would mean much earlier sunsets in the winter, which they generally don't want either. So they're kind of waiting on federal action.
Okay, so while the debate continues, most of us are still dealing with the switch twice a year. And our bodies are feeling it right now. Knowing it takes those 2 to 5 days to recalibrate, what can we actually do to help our bodies adjust more smoothly? What practical steps came up in the sources?
Yeah, the good news is there are definitely things you can do. The sources consistently pointed toward the 5 key strategies, all pretty gentle, to help your body resync. And the most important one, unsurprisingly, is managing light.
Right. Get that morning sunlight exposure, ideally within about 15 minutes of waking up. Just open the curtains, step outside if you can. That bright light is like hitting the reset button for your brain, telling it powerfully, okay, day has started, stop the melatonin.
Exactly. And the flip side is crucial too. Manage your evening light. In the hour or two before bed, try to use soft, dim lighting. Definitely minimize exposure to bright screens, phones, tablets, computers. That blue light really suppresses melatonin. You want to allow your natural melatonin levels to rise, kind of gently inviting sleep.
Okay, number 3 ties back to that balance issue we talked about.
Sure.
Pause before moving quickly, especially that transition from sitting to standing or getting out of bed. Give your coordination system that extra beat. Sit, stand, walk, slow it down just a touch.
Number 4, hydration. It sounds simple, but drinking a glass of water right when you wake up actually helps wake up your brain and body more effectively than just caffeine alone. It's less jarring on your system too, especially the cardiovascular system that's adjusting its timing. So, water first, then coffee.
Good tip. And the last one.
A short walk after meals. Just 5 or 10 minutes. This isn't about intense exercise. It really helps with digestion. It can help stabilize blood pressure naturally, and it gives your mood a little boost. Plus, it helps your body manage the glucose from your meal more effectively. These are all small things, but done consistently, they send signals to your body that help it find the new rhythm more gently.
So it seems the big picture here is contrast. The clock on the wall changes instantly one night, but our biology changes gradually, carefully, over days.
That's the core takeaway. Your body isn't being slow or difficult when it takes time to adjust. It's being precise. It's adapting with care to protect all those complex, interconnected systems.
Recognizing that precision feels important, it shifts the perspective. So the final thought maybe is, how does knowing this, knowing that your balance, your alertness, your mood, even your heart health, are all fundamentally tied to this internal timing change, how you approach your day, especially your morning, regardless of what the clock says?
Right. Maybe it encourages us to think less about forcing our bodies to match the clock and more about inviting our bodies into the day, supporting its pace. honoring its need for stability and rhythm, that understanding that your biological time is real and important, maybe that's the key to feeling well synchronized no matter what time it is.